It's so funny to me when people don't want to tell you their age, because I'm like, you know what? There are a lot of things I can control in this life, and there's a few things I can't. And the big one is every minute I'm a minute older than I was before. I mean, I can't help that. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. There's nothing to be ashamed about or to hide. I am proud. I am proud at the extraordinary things I could do with my body at 53. So it's not about like even at 53. It's just like my goal is to be better every day.
Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe. Hey, everybody. I love movement. For many of you who've been following me for years, I was a dancer for many, many years, classically trained in ballet and danced all the way up to 62. And I really miss it. I'm not really thinking about going back to it. I still dance in the privacy of my home, but I am thinking about performing again, which sounds crazy at my age, but not really, because, I don't think it's not the age, it's the stage. I think that movement is so important. But some people, maybe dance is not your thing, but have you considered yoga? And let me just say real quickly, for people who have these issues around yoga, yoga is just a modality. It's another form of movement. I have yet to have a spirit come and overtake me and do all this weird stuff. It doesn't happen. It helps you with your balance. It helps you with your bone health. It also helps you to relieve stress, and it helps you with clarity of your mind and focus. So I think it's something that we should all consider doing, especially if you're struggling to find some kind of movement regime. Gentle yoga might be something you want to talk about. And that's why I have with me Shana Meyerson, who is passionate about the idea of women doing yoga after 50. So first of all, look at her. She must not be talking about herself. These are her clients, not her. So that's the first thing. But thank you so much for being on the Vibe Living podcast today. It's wonderful to have you.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure, Lotus. Thank you for inviting me to join you.
Absolutely. So tell me, why are you so passionate about yoga? Why do you think it's just such a great thing for women over 50 in particular?
Well, I mean, why I'm passionate about yoga is, do you have all day? Because I think we only have a half of an hour. So I can tell you what made me like pivot from my entire life to yoga. Yeah. So the thing that brought me to yoga initially, and I was 30, so 23 years ago. I was actually that after 3 decades of perfectionism to a point where it became debilitating, yoga was the first time in my entire life that anybody told me it was okay to fall. Now, that was something that was so revelatory to me at the time. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people never learn that in a lifetime. So that isn't specific. I'll get specific to over 50. I'll be 53 next week. But I believe that is the single most powerful lesson in yoga is that, first of all, there's yoga for everyone. I mean, literally everyone. There's like yoga that's sitting on the floor and humming, and there's yoga that's handstanding and doing all sorts of crazy pretzel-y stuff. There's yoga that is very, very spiritual. And then there's yoga that really doesn't get into the spiritual stuff at all. And so I believe that, first of all, because it's accessible to literally everyone, it is the perfect form of exercise because it's not limited to one kind of exercise. It's like saying, what would you do if you went to the gym? Well, you could lift weights, you could do free weights, you could do machines, you could do cardio, you could do classic. You can't say that spinning class is the same as biceps curls, right? So there's so many different kinds of yoga, but particularly for women over 50, I think that yoga is incredibly empowering because we can do things with our bodies when we believe that we could do things with our bodies that we never even imagined. I know that there's a certain level of success in, say, bench pressing more weight than you're used to or whatever. But
Mhm.
when you look at a yoga pose, and so many people are so mystified, right, by whether it's, again, like a handstand or a particular stretch or some sort of balance pose, that when they accomplish it, and I'm not saying if, I'm saying when, because if you set your mind to it, you will do amazing things on the mat. And it is so empowering. And that empowerment does not like live on the mat. It carries through to every
Um,
aspect
uh,
of your life.
which is so important because I find that the women that I work with over 40, over 50 and beyond, there comes a point in time where their confidence takes a hit.
Yeah.
The self-talk and things that they say to themselves is not really great. So being able to have a modality that can help you with your confidence. And you would know because Shana Meyerson is a globally acclaimed creator of yoga athletica. And she's starting teaching yoga back in 2002 and
Yes.
is widely considered to be one of the most effective and engaging instructors on the planet today. So you work with people from the very beginning all the way to the advanced students. And your bio says that you have a special gift of getting just about anyone into any pose that they could possibly imagine, just how you mentioned. So I have to ask you, what's your process? I know you teach them the move and everything else, but from a emotional and mindset perspective, what's your process to get them there?
Sure. First of all, let me just say that when you say that I work from like the very beginners to the most advanced, I was actually in 2002 literally one of the first people in the free world to be teaching yoga to children. Now it's ubiquitous now, but back then, like it was a practice in India and nowhere else. So when
Wow.
you say beginning to end, we're talking like babies to seniors.
Wow.
And it's not irrelevant to the conversation because the reason, oddly enough, that I can get anybody into anything is because I know how to teach a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old how to arm balance, how to handstand, how to do all these crazy things. So I know how to break things down into like easily digestible chunks that don't really change when I'm working with adults, right? So here's the thing. I don't accept no in my classes. I have complete faith in everyone, period. But my faith can't get them into anything. They have to have their own faith. And that is a process that some people really, unfortunately, have to work on a lot. And it's a process that a lot of people on the other spectrum like come in and they're like, I'm here to do a handstand. And they've never done a handstand, they've never exercised, but they just are like, in it to win it. And so with me, like, I guess the way that my process differs very dramatically from most teachers is most teachers in the world, their go-to is if you can't do it, let's modify it.
Mhm.
Meaning let's just make it easier. Let's make it more accessible. And there's something to be said for that if someone has honest to goodness limitations, right? Like, so say, flexibility, we have limitations.
Mhm.
Each of our bodies can only stretch as far as our bodies can stretch, right? So you might need a prop to help you to access something, for example. Or if you have like a real injury, obviously you don't want to do anything that's going to hurt you.
Right.
But for the average healthy human, my process is I do not modify. I assume that everyone can do everything. And instead of modifying how I expect them to execute a pose, I modify how I present the pose in a way that's going to make sense to them. And also knowing, the old saying from, I believe Lao Tzu was the first to say it, which is that, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And with me and with my students, my process is to celebrate the small wins because too many people are obsessed with end results. And there's no such thing as an end result without putting in the work and the process. So every step is a success And that way you don't have to wait until you're handstanding in the middle of the room to celebrate a handstand. It might just be that you put your hands on the floor and that scared the crap out of you. And congratulations. Next week, maybe we lift a leg.
Wow. So celebrating the small successes as you go up and just not overlooking them, thinking, oh, well, anybody can do that. But that's not true. Not anybody could do that, or nor do some people try. Now, why handstands? Why are handstands such an important go-to for you? Especially, you mentioned here in your bio, especially for women over 50.
Yeah, it's funny. Speaking of the handstands in women over 50, I have this program called the Handstand Breakthrough Revolution. It's sort of like if you think of, say, Tony Robbins firewalking, but insert handstands instead.
Hmm.
That it's sort of the gateway drug to self-empowerment, right?
Mm.
And in this program, almost all of the people who joined have been women over 50. I've had quite a few women over 70, which is so interesting to me, but they're just like, yeah, I'm in the, again, like, I don't believe in age. I don't believe in limitations. This is something I want to accomplish. I'm in my 70s. I know I'm probably not going to be able to start this when I'm 90. There's no day like today. Let's do this. And I guess my obsession with handstands came because pretty much, I don't want to say everything. Most of yoga, like the hardest things you ever seen in a book, came very, very easily to me.
Mm.
Um, because I was a lifelong athlete. And so, I had some flexibility I had to build, but balance was already sort of in my DNA. And, I had a lot of just muscular control and body awareness. But handstands, boy, those took me a while of practicing every single day and falling and getting up and falling and getting up and figuring out and recalibrating. And so it was in the process of handstanding that I learned like patience, perseverance, how to make order out of chaos. Everything is falling around you. Are you going to get back up? Or are you going to say, I'm done for the day? And even to this day, I mean, I practice 2.5 hours every day, like the hardest class you could imagine. I mean, hardest class is just me, but the hardest practice you could imagine. And if I don't have a pose that I am working on and struggling with, it's not a practice for me. I've always got to have end goals. And so handstands are sort of like the holy grail of yoga. And I do believe, they teach you non-reactivity, all these life skills that I'm telling you that when people who are really, really intent on nailing their handstands and particularly who have struggled with it for a while finally get it, it's like, when the Wizard of Oz goes from black and white to color, they're like, in the world.
Wow, I
Just,
know. It's so self-affirming to be able
yes.
to do something like that. I know how I would feel when in gymnastics, they have this thing called the twisties. And that's when your mindset, just your mind is thinking well, your body's thinking one thing, your mind is thinking something else. And somewhere along the line, you forget to twist in your flip or whatever. And
Okay.
yeah, that happens sometimes. In fact, Simone Biles suffered from the twisties for a little while, but I suffered from it before. And one of the things that I learned to do to kind of go back to basics to help me overcome the twisties was to work on the things I knew I could do well. And the handstand was one of them. It was one of them.
Nice.
Now, it's interesting because I took a picture of myself with a handstand when I was probably about 56 or 57. So it's been a while since I've really done one. I haven't even thought about it, but now you've got me motivated to see if I can do it. But let's say someone who's never done a handstand before, how do they prepare? What do they do to get started? Do they work on getting their wrist stronger or their arms stronger? How does that work?
I mean, I have to be honest that in my very, very biased opinion, people should not be practicing at least a yoga form of handstand without practicing yoga. And that it's all within a
Mm,
context of like a broader, really warm up. That they handstand is sort of like the consummate pose. Everything
mm,
that we do in yoga adds up to handstand and
Ah,
or
okay.
back bend, as you would call it in gymnastics, and in yoga, we call it an upward bow.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'm extremely advanced, so I could do a handstand anytime.
Mhm.
But with my students, we're really not doing handstands, like the serious handstands,
Ah, okay.
until like an hour or more into the class. So that's the first thing, is that when you say, what should you build? And people always ask that, it's like, it's so many things. And I would say, oddly enough, the one pose that is going to affect handstand success the most is actually splits.
Oh, interesting. It's so funny you should ask me that because my husband asked me the other day, "Can you do splits?" I'm like, "I'm a dancer. What are you talking about?" I've always been able to do splits, but that's interesting. Now, why the splits?
So if you can, and I'm talking about vertical splits.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, vertical splits. Okay, forward back splits rather than a straddle.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
So if you could picture, if your hands are on the floor, and I mean, I could show you if you want to, but you won't be able
Sure.
to.
We'll be
Okay.
on, this will be on video too. So yeah.
Okay. So I'll show you just very simply. The concept is, let's see if I think I have to go down just a little bit. Sorry. Hello,
Mm-hmm.
living room. So the concept is this, and it's really quite simple. If I were to try to enter a handstand, right, and my leg is here, you can see how far my leg is going to have to travel to get into a handstand, right?
Right.
Quite far. Now, if on the other hand, I can split, right,
Mm-hmm.
then what
Mm-hmm.
happens is I'm actually not even going to have to jump. I can actually just press because this top leg, right, is already in place. Whoops, sorry. I'm a little shaky right now because I just practiced for 2 hours. 2 minutes.
Okay, I get you. Okay, so there you go. Okay. Because you have that you have the flexibility to have one leg up and then all you have to do is have the other leg meet the other leg
That's
instead of
right.
right. Mm-hmm.
Because
And
the further your leg has to travel,
mm-hmm.
the more momentum you're going to have to put behind it. The
Mm-hmm.
more momentum you put behind it, the more speed.
Right.
And the
Mm-hmm.
more speed, the less control. And the less control, the less balance. So
That makes a lot of sense. And you said you were 53 and you don't look 53 at all. And you have a question here about how do you stay forever young? And I think everybody has their idea of how to stay forever young, whatever that means. But what's your philosophy of being forever young, even after 50?
because to me, there's no second half of that sentence. There is no even after 50.
Mm.
I mean, it's funny, when I was in my early 20s, right? I was a total gym rat. I used to wake up at 4 a.m. every day to go to the gym for 3 hours. And, when you're there at 4 a.m., there's no random people. It's always the same people every day. And there was one man there, and he was at 94 years old. And he was there every day at the gym doing his thing. He wasn't Jack LaLanne. I mean, he was
Mm-hmm,
just a
mm-hmm.
guy at the gym at 4 a.m. every day. And he was still working full time and doing the things.
Mm.
And so at a very early age, I mean, in my early 20s, I developed this theory that if every day you wake up and do what you did the day before, you'll always be able to do what you've always been able to do.
Mm.
And so to me, it's so funny to me when people don't want to tell you their age, because I'm like, you know what? There are a lot of things I can control in this life, and there's a few things I can't. And the big one is every minute I'm a minute older than I was before. I mean, I can't help that. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. There's nothing to be ashamed about or to hide. I am proud. Like I am proud at the extraordinary things I could do with my body at 53. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not about like even at 53. It's just like my goal is to be better every day. And that handstand was really bad because my arms are so shaky
No,
right
because 2.5 hours worth of workout. I get it. I mean, you're talking to someone that used to take three classes a day. And by the third class, I was always wondering, why am I taking this class? I might, because there comes a point where your body just needs to rejuvenate, just needs to get some rest. So I get it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's interesting what you said about that, because once again, so much of it starts with the mindset of not just wanting to do it, but believing that you can do it, even
Yes.
though it might take some practice. And you mentioned the patience, which is so important. And we have a tendency to be very impatient because we are a microwave society, everything now, 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 now. But
Yes.
there is virtue in patience. I mean, that's a paraphrase of a quote, but it's true. There is
Sure.
virtue in patience, because the things that you really want, the things that you aspire to, usually take some patience and resilience and focus and concentration, and celebrating the small things along the way, because that keeps you motivated to keep moving towards that goal, whatever it is. So that makes perfect sense. I know that everyone listening to this is going to want to find out how they can learn a handstand. So I know in the show page we've got all of your information. Now, do you give classes online, or how do you do it for
Yeah.
people who are away?
I,
Okay.
I mean, ever since the pandemic, almost all of my classes are online.
Okay.
And the truth is that the sign of an advanced instructor is that they don't have to touch you, that they understand the words and concepts well enough to be able to communicate whatever it is that you need to accomplish. By the way, I have like a fairly well subscribed to YouTube channel. And
Yes, you do.
and it's funny because I have so many videos that are like super advanced and crazy stuff, but my single most popular video of all time was me teaching my mom how to do a basic handstand, meaning walking her feet up the wall when she was 69. And to this day, I travel all over the world, and there's always people in every workshop. They're like, how are your mom? How is your mom? I love your mom. I love that. And it's so funny because it's my most basic handstand video. But to answer your previous question of like, where's a good place to start? That video, which is called something like Handstands for Beginners Who Are Afraid of Handstands, is a great place to start.
Okay, fantastic. And I'm just going through it. Everybody, you've got to take a look at her YouTube channel, 47,000 subscribers, all kinds of videos, over 1,000 videos. And she's talking about yoga hacks, secrets, tips, and tools that are great for students and teachers. And I see the one for your mom. That's just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to have you here on the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. It's been wonderful having you here today.
Thank you so much, Linus. I had a great time, except for that really pathetic handstand.
No,
You've got to take my word for it.
that's
I
okay.
do like 50 a day,
You have my personal permission, because when you go over to her YouTube channel, all will be absolved. You're like, whoa, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you to all of you for being here on the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. Thank you for making this podcast in the top 10% globally of podcasts around the world. And it's just wonderful to be able to be a part of all these wonderful podcasts that are doing well. And I ask that you please like, subscribe, and comment. I want to hear from you. And also let me know, what kinds of podcasts would you like to hear? It's all about the vibe, being more vibrant, more intuitive, more beautiful, and empowered as we go through this journey we call life. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. Have a fantastic
thank
day.
you.
And don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye.
Okay, so think of it this way. If I'm trying to get into a handstand, right? And let's say I'm super tight and my leg is here. Then it's going to have to travel my foot from here all the way up to vertical in order to do a handstand, right? That's like a tremendous trajectory. But now, let's say I could do a full split, which I can. Then my entry point is going to be somewhere closer to here. And now you can see that this top foot only is going to have to travel a few inches instead of a whole bunch of feet in order to get in. I'm just going to pop in a little bit. But at this point, despite my hair, if I just lean into it, right, I can create a handstand with almost no effort. Because my top leg was not only waiting for me, but it also helps to pull me up. Now, let me just make one more point. In life, the things that you pull to you are going to be a lot sweeter and easier than the ones that you push.
Oh, that's so true. I've certainly learned that in 17 years of business, that when you're pushing, that something's wrong. You got to step back from it for a little bit and allow it to happen. And anything that is worth achieving is worth waiting for and doing it the right way, having the right building blocks to get there. Those shortcuts always comes back to haunt you later on. It's like, okay, that wasn't the best way to get to that point. But going from point A to point B in a way that's developing you, in a way that you're growing and learning and building, that's a sweet spot when you finally get to that thing, when you finally achieve that goal. And that's a great analogy. So thank you so much, Shana, for sharing the handstand, the Shana Meyerson handstand. Yes. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.